Sometimes people suggest that it's a problem because Christians in the world today need to be a bit quiet about their faith or not really show it to other people. Now, it's certainly the case that in some places in the world there is persecution, and it's certainly the case that Christians at times maybe can be embarrassed or hold back from practicing their faith. But I'm going to suggest that in spite of maybe we can think that it can be difficult to have Christian witness, there are a lot of kind of loud expressions of Christianity in the world. For example, tomorrow will probably be one of the days in which there is the most prayers offered up during the Super Bowl. As well, of course, in many sporting events, you can see athletes quite openly making the sign of the cross, whether it's at the Olympics occurring now or later in the World Cup. Oftentimes in politics, you'll hear very openly politicians quoting the Bible or referencing the fact that they are Christians, that they are followers of Jesus. It seems that in the world we have some very loud expressions of Christianity, but also it seems that these expressions are not altogether compelling. They can at times even push people away. It seems what we're not looking for is loud expressions of Christianity, but credible forms and witnesses of Christianity. At times then, even being Christian or saying you're Christian can kind of push people away, because at times Christianity can get a bad sort of label or reputation. And this is something I think that's happened throughout the history of Christianity. Oftentimes people who have power, who have wealth, claim to be Christian, but their example can be very, very different. We can think, for example, in the kind of early years when Christianity was first legalized, many of the Roman emperors or other of those in the ruling class would claim to be Christian, but live lives very far from the gospel. We can think kind of more recently, but still quite a while ago, of the popes, for example, during the Renaissance, who of course were supposedly the vicar of Christ, but lived very bad lives. We can think that the same also continues today. Oftentimes, of course, some politicians or other people in power claim to be Christian, even quote the Bible, but their example is very far from the gospel. In this way, then, when someone has that label of being Christian, some people treat it more as a warning sign to stay away from such people, rather than an announcement of the good news. Jesus in the gospel today presents us with images that point us how we can be credible witnesses in the world, how we can be examples to others that really draw people towards Christ. Jesus gives us the examples or images of salt and of light. I'd like to suggest that both these images present a form of witness of Christians in the world today that is not overbearing, that is not forceful or authoritative, but rather is a form of witness that really draws out the good in other people, that helps people see the goodness of God as well. Let us think, for example, first of that image of salt, of being salt in this world. Salt at the time of Jesus, when he's speaking about this image, was something very, very valuable. As you probably know, the word salary today derives from the fact that Roman soldiers were given some salt as their pay or income. Salt was very important. It was used to preserve, it was used to disinfect wounds, and salt, as today, was also used at the time of Jesus to enhance flavors, and I'd like to kind of focus on that. Salt can be a wonderful thing in cooking if it's used in the right way and draws out the goodness, the flavor of foods. But too much salt, of course, can ruin a dish. I remember when I was kind of growing up, I think I was in elementary school, I kind of got into baking and cooking and trying and experimenting with different recipes. And this was before you could just look it up on YouTube. So I got a bit confused reading a cookbook one day. And I remember I was very ambitious. I was trying to make kind of meringue that you would bake, those kind of egg whites, and you beat them up and you put sugar in it. But I got a bit confused because there was a call for just, I think it was a dash of salt or something like that, and I didn't really know what that meant, so I ended up putting way too much salt in this dish, and it was ruined, and I had to throw it away. Salt if it's too much, can be overbearing. It can really destroy what is there. But of course, in food when we're cooking, salt is meant to draw out the goodness that is there in the food, to enhance the flavor. If we are that salt, like in my baking of the meringues, that overpowers as Christians, if we live in that way, it's not something that is attractive. And we can see different forms of Christianity like this in the world, forms of Christianity that seek to say as Christians that we are better than other people or that we want to dominate other people. I do not think that this is a kind of credible or attractive witness. We want to be salt to other people, to bring out the goodness that is there in the world, to bring out the goodness that is there in other people, to help other people as well see their own goodness that God has created them to be. We're called to be salt in the world. Light as well, of course, is a very important image, and today we kind of take it for granted. It's dark outside, but it's light in here. We just flick on a switch and all is bright. But of course, in antiquity, before electricity, it was more difficult at times to light up a room. Having light was something very, very valuable. But light, of course, can overpower as well. It can be a bad witness. I was driving the other day and it was a bit rainy, and I was driving along, and a car was coming at me in the opposite direction. And I don't know if some of you have seen those bright halogen lights that are kind of blinding. My apologies if you have them. I just really don't like them. And so they were blinding me when I was coming, and it was kind of difficult actually to drive. But good headlights, of course, help us see our way, help us see our direction. Light should really illuminate our path, not blind us, but light should illuminate our path, help us to see where we are to go, but also reveal the goodness that is there. You can picture, of course, a beautiful sunrise when the sun is coming up, all is dark, and then slowly but surely we begin to see all the beauty of nature, of creation that is there. Light, which we are called to be in our own lives, is meant to illuminate the goodness of other people. Light, of course, our witness, our example, should also help people see the way that we are to follow God, but it should never be something that is, again, like those headlights, overpowering or painful or even domineering in that way. Today in the Gospel, then, Jesus calls us to consider what true and good Christian witness looks like. What type of label or what do we want people to think when they think of a Christian? Do they want to think of someone perhaps who dominates other people, someone perhaps who claims to follow the gospel but does not, or someone who brings out the good in others, helps illuminate the goodness that is there, helps draw out the natural goodness that God has created them to be? So then perhaps we can consider a final question or reflection as we enter into the rest of this Mass and as we face the week ahead. Imagine for a moment that in the coming week, someone will encounter you, and they know that you will be a Christian, or they know that we or I will be a Christian. If they encountered us and knew that we are a Christian, and imagine, for example, that we were the only Christian they ever met, what kind of example or what kind of image would we give them of what a Christian, a follower of Jesus Christ, is?